Hey guys, today we want to talk all about how do we merge our finances with our spouse. What are some tips that we can look at, and what are some rules that we should live by when we're looking to merge our finances with our spouse? Especially if maybe you're making a lot more than your spouse or vice versa. We'll talk about some rules to stick by that hopefully will help you get through this kind of changing transitionary time in your life. So really excited to break this down with you today. But if this is your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Michael Foley. I'm a certified financial planner and also a certified student loan professional, and I'm also the son of two doctors, and really developed Lifestyle Creep to help the healthcare workers in our society to really be more intentional in their finances, really trying to break down a lot of complex financial topics and just break it down in a simple manner so that we can learn how we can actually implement some of these changes into your lives. So really excited to dive in with you, and so welcome. So want to start off with talking about what do we see from client situations. And we see a lot of different situations where one spouse may be making a substantial amount more than the other spouse. Sometimes both spouses are primary breadwinners of the family, and everything in between. And so I think that we want to talk about how do we actually merge our finances. So let's just say you just got married, and we want to talk through, we know we want to start doing our finances together, but we aren't quite sure how to actually do that. And so it comes down to three options for how we actually do that. So the first option is up on the board here. Is the option one is you just have one big pot and everything goes into the big pot, right? So everything you guys make goes into one joint checking account, and then you distribute things out of there, pay bills out of there, savings, everything out of that one pot, right? So that's a common one that we see. Option two is the second option, where maybe we have, maybe you've been doing your finances for a while, maybe you're getting married a little bit later in life, and you're used to having your own checking account, don't want to necessarily get rid of that entirely. So sometimes, spouses will keep their own checking accounts, but then they'll set up a joint account that you each deposit money into to pay joint bills, right? So that's option two. And then option three is where we don't really actually merge finances at all. Everything stays separate, no joint accounts, and then you pay for this, I pay for this, kind of conversation. Okay, so I think I want to start off with all of them work, right? And so they can all work for your situation. Or I should say that they all work, but they may not all work for your situation, right? And so it's really important to talk with your spouse about what are they comfortable with, what do they prefer, and but you both got to be in agreement on that, right? And so sometimes having different of the various different options make it difficult, and can help kind of lead you down a path that may not be fruitful for you long term, right? So for example, I think we see a lot of people that just merge everything together. So like my wife and I, we officially merged everything together, but my parents have done the same. But it's just funny to see how we have stories of my dad who both my parents were doctors, right? And so but my mom kind of ran the finances, right? And so she saw everything that happened. And so whenever my dad would want to surprise her with something, he would have to go and like siphon off cash somehow. And there was a story where he actually did some side work, did some locums work or something to get cash, and he actually stored it in his trunk to try to surprise my mom with a trip to Europe. And so it was just a cute story, because it's funny to see how when you do join that, there are challenges with that. You can't even surprise your spouse with different things oftentimes, but that's one option that we see really helps people to live at the same lifestyle with that. The next option, when we're having separate accounts, oftentimes this is usually where we see most of our clients start, right? So we say, all right, we're getting married, let's start having a joint account, and people, you guys transferring money into the account. But where it does get hairy in that one is trying to say, all right, well, how much do each of you contribute to the joint account, especially if you're earning different amounts, right? And so that can lead to some tension and conversations on that, but still another valid option. And then option three is some where you've been running your own deal for a while, perhaps you have a prenup or something and we need to keep everything separate. I think that's kind of where we see option 3, where there's not really a lot of synergy. And so, but that can lead to a lot of disconnection in your finances as well. So that's why I wanted to break down 5 rules that we want to abide by. So whichever option you do choose, this is something that we got to be thinking about, okay? So rule number 1, regardless of the option, we have to be living the same lifestyle, okay? It's all too common that we see folks that whether they merge everything together, this is usually not as big of an issue, but in option 2 or option 3, sometimes perhaps the higher earning spouse maybe will treat themselves or do other things that the other spouse doesn't feel that they have access to, or maybe they have to go through you to get to, to be able to buy something. They don't feel like they're living the same lifestyle. Maybe you're driving a little bit nicer car than they are, or maybe you can go get, massages on a regular basis and they can't, right? Just different things like that can lead to people living a different lifestyle. And we gotta remember, you guys are a team, right? And so, we don't want to think of this as kind of, I did track and field when I was, when I was in college, and track and field is a team sport, but really it's an individual sport, right? So I can go all the way to nationals, whether my team goes to nationals or not, right? Not a good way to be thinking about your finances, right? We want to think of it as more of like a true team sport, like a basketball or, baseball, football, where the only way you're going to get to nationals is if the whole team gets there, right? That's how we want to be thinking about our finances. And so living the same lifestyle is critical, okay? So rule number 2 is to set a spending limit. So a lot of people are probably like, oh gosh, I don't want a spending limit, and I don't want them telling me what I can spend on and things like that. That's not the point here, right? But the point is to have a conversation with your spouse and ask them, what amount, if I were to go and spend money and we not talk about it ahead of time, would make you feel uncomfortable? So it's actually really shocking. It's really fun to see with clients, and my wife and I did this when we first started our joining our finances, and she went and I can't even remember when she bought something for our house, and it was like $400, right? And in her mind that was kind of just not a big deal, right? Or maybe that was kind of in her mind that was like her money that she was using, right? But for me, that was jarring, right? I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to manage our budget, from our household, and you just spent $400 that I wasn't accounting for, and so that's stressful, right? It has nothing to do with what she actually bought, right? It's probably okay, but the fact that we didn't talk about it ahead of time made me uncomfortable, and it caused a disconnection and trust on that, right? And so it's not that I don't trust her, it's just that we didn't talk about it. So ask your spouse, what is that limit that makes you feel uncomfortable if I were to go and spend this and us not have a conversation? And what you'll typically find is that one spouse has a lot higher number than the other spouse, right? But whoever has the lowest number, that's your guys' number. So again, it's not to say, that they can't buy something, above that mark. It just means that you have to have a conversation with each other to make sure that that's still in line with your joint goals and what you guys are trying to do together. So again, merging your lifestyles. So setting a spending limit is absolutely critical to make sure that you guys have good communication with that and avoid some of these pitfalls, because we see so many issues, in other relationships that, finances is kind of the crux of those disagreements or frustrations. And so this is an easy way to just eliminate, a majority of those pitfalls, okay? The third rule is make sure you're setting long-term goals together, right? So a lot of times we'll see, maybe one spouse has all these goals, dreams, aspirations for themselves or their business or what they're doing, but maybe they haven't asked the spouse what they want to be doing or how they want to be supporting that, or if their goals and aspirations is really what they want to be doing as well. So I think making sure that you have joint goals, long-term goals that you can both work towards. Again, it comes back to working as a team, and it gets you guys both motivated to be having conversations about this stuff and be encouraged to help each other get to that end goal together. But it's not me helping my wife get her goals, right? It's both of us working towards our goals as a couple, right? So really trying to merge those things together. And then so the fourth rule that we have is remember that you're together for a reason, right? You guys got married, maybe you have kids. You guys are married and have kids because you're meant to be together, right? And so if you're meant to be together, then you need to honor each other's opinions in these financial decisions that you might make, right? So if somebody, maybe one spouse wants to be really aggressive with an investment, but maybe that makes that the other spouse uncomfortable. Well, maybe that is, a good option, but if that's going to cause tension in your relationship, I don't care how good of an investment that is, that's not as good as you making sure that your relationship is intact and really a good relationship overall. So I'd rather see a less aggressive investment that can make both spouses, in a comfortable position, as opposed to disregarding one spouse in that, right? And so that's maybe an investment decision, but maybe that's in a purchase decision, and maybe someone, the one spouse wants to buy a big house, but maybe that makes the other, other spouse uncomfortable and doesn't want to have the big house to have the upkeep or other things. Honor that, right? You guys both have good opinions, and I can't tell you how many times that I have this great idea that I want to do something, and then my wife comes in and she just has a totally different perspective. She thinks of things totally differently than how I think of things, and it's been really helpful for me to alleviate a lot of just stupid financial moves that I probably would have made if it weren't for her. So make sure that remember, you guys are together for a reason, so honor that and respect each other through that. Okay. And then lastly is the fifth rule is talk. Okay. I can't tell you enough how important it is to make sure that you're talking about finances with your spouse. It's so common to see people that their first time talking about their finances is with me, right? And I think that's a great first step. But it can't be just a hey, let's meet with our financial advisor and talk finances. This needs to be a regular conversation that you guys are having, because what can happen is if we don't have those conversations, it's like an infection, right? Something, maybe one thing happens, goes on, and then it festers, and then it turns into a really big issue, and it turns into a blow up. And that blow up could have been alleviated with just having that quick conversation, or being like, hey, what the heck? You went over our spending limit. Why didn't we talk about that, right? So just talking about that. The more you can converse about that, the more you can set goals, the more you guys can get excited together about hitting these goals, the more successful we see couples be, right? And so I think having that communication is really important. And so I think the last thing that we do see is we do see some couples that come into this and maybe go for an option 3 because perhaps maybe the one spouse comes from money, or maybe they have other family obligations to have a prenuptial agreement established ahead of time. And if that is the case, we can absolutely honor that. However, we need to make sure that we're still abiding by these rules, right? And so if we're not living the same lifestyle, if we're not looking at this as a team, we're not setting spending limits, all of those things is going to break that down. And so the question we really have to ask is, by having the prenup in place, regardless of if you have it or not, are we simply using that to plan for a divorce, and we're setting our, not only the prenup up, but all of our financial habits to plan for a divorce? Or are we planning to have a successful marriage and a long-lasting financial relationship with your spouse, right? And so I think that's the critical question that we have to ask, because that's really how we need to be thinking about our finances, regardless of if you do have a prenup or anything in place as well. So hopefully this has been helpful to kind of break down some different thoughts, and it's such an exciting time of your life. But oftentimes we do find it to be really helpful if you do have a coach through this, right? And so if you are merging your finances, we'd love to come alongside you and help facilitate some of those conversations with you. And so our team, what we do, complimentary reviews for our newlywed couples, and just to start this conversation, get to know each other's finances. Sometimes it's helpful to have someone else there to ask about those different things, and you learn different things about your spouse to, kind of light the fire to have those conversations flourish with each other. So feel free to reach out. We'll put our contact in the description below here, but really looking forward to spending some time with you, and hopefully this has been helpful, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much.